Welcome to this look at corporate level strategy. So now we've moved from the business level strategy looking at diversification and cost leadership to corporate level strategy and understanding some of its purpose, understanding some of the different corporate level strategies and diversification that we can use. So we're going to do two things. The first being defining corporate level strategies and discussing its purpose. And then we're going to describe some of the different levels of diversification with different corporate level strategies. So we're here looking at chapter 6, and you can follow through how we're working through the different strategic. And you can see how we're working through the strategic management process. So, as a quick recap, we have two levels of strategy. The first being business level strategy, which we've spoken about already, which is our competitive strategy. So each business chooses a business level strategy to achieve strategic competitiveness and in order to earn above average returns. And this is really done looking at competitors. This is done looking at the market. This is done understanding what our customers want. Corporate level strategy, on the other hand, is what we call company-wide strategy and is taken by a corporate entity to gain a competitive advantage through often the mix of businesses competing in several industries or several product markets at the same time and or even several geographic locations. So two key questions that need to be asked when we look at corporate strategy. The first is, what business should a firm be in? If you're Jim's Mowing, that's a whole heap of things. If you're Coca-Cola, that's a wide array of different things. But if you're Samsung, maybe it's a bit less. Oh. If you're Samsung, maybe your target's a bit more narrowed. How should the corporate office manage the group of businesses that it holds? What does it need to do in order to maintain their competitive advantage? So corporate level strategies, as you can see here, are aimed at enhancing a firm's strategic competitiveness and, again, contribute to earning above average returns, what we're after. So there are a number of levels and types of diversification. You can see that it's broken into three areas here. The first is what we call low levels of diversification. So we have single business or dominant business diversification. And you can see the diagrams on the right here showing you what a single business and a dominant business level of diversification looks like. You can see that most of the revenue comes from a single unit or single business within single business diversification, and very little comes from a second or alternative source of income from a dominant business. So examples of this may be you are a computer. So examples of this may be you're a car sales company and you get a little bit of business from selling parts. We then talk about moderate to high levels of diversification. So you can see how we're starting to break up in this. So you can see how we're starting to add in components into the idea where, no. So you can see how we're starting to add in components to the diagram in terms of related constrained diversification, as well as related linked diversification. So less than 70% of your revenue comes from the dominant business. And in a related constrained diversification, we look at all businesses share product, technological, and distribution linkages. However, in a related linked or mixed related and unrelated level of diversification, we talk about this. Businesses often only have very limited links between them and don't often share different areas, whether they be primary or support activities. We then come to the last one here, which is very high levels of diversification. And this is where less than 70% of revenue comes from dominant. And this is where less than 70% of revenue comes from the dominant business. And there are no common links between businesses. And you often see this where organizations silo off different components of their businesses in order to keep them quite separate. Organizations such as Qantas, which we've just spoken about, look at this in terms of siloing off Jetstar. They don't use Qantas staff. They don't use Qantas airplanes. They don't use Qantas pilots. However, they are still owned by the same parent company. What do you think Bunnings is doing in this instance? Is it related diversification, unrelated diversification, or highly? So what do you think Bunnings is doing here? Do you think they have low, medium, or high levels of diversification with their pet range?